What's going on, guys? Pegasus from the Wise Guys. Happy Noid year. Guys, you guys already have seen my profiles on Infernoids. This is just a new format one. It was requested several times on our community page. A couple times I've been hit up on Facebook, and it's just with the new list and Monstergate getting hit on the list for absolutely no reason. I can completely understand how people are trying to find some builds, and this is one of like 4 or 5 different ones that I have, and I'm kind of, fond of Infernoids, and I've done well with them in the past. So this is my current take on it. It's not much different, but it is a little different. I played 3 Decatron, for obvious reasons. I've had only one chance to test it at locals, and I was undefeated, and I just dropped because I didn't feel too hot and went home. No COVID though. But as far as this Decatron, the new printing of it, really amazing artwork, and a really nice update that I didn't expect. So it's nice to have those. Decatron obviously is the guy that dumps any Infernoid name to copy their level, gain their level, and copy their effect that's on the field. So a lot of times when you're dropping cards like these, the Anutsus, which is the spell and trap negate on the field, you definitely have something really potent with that. And then to go along with that, you also have the monster effect negate and banish. So they're both very similar to Mechaba in their effect and negate. And then their on summon effects are also equally as powerful, Deviati being a heavy storm, and then Anutsu being a dark hole on summon. I really can't say enough about how powerful those two are, and it's the reason why this deck is still so widely known as at least being able to be a powerful rogue deck that people have to look out for. I don't feel like you ever should play more than those ratios of these 7, just because there's just no point unless you're playing grass is greener, which we got a profile coming on Master Duel on Infernoids, and there'll be several on there as well. A Tondale, and I also play double Sitesmas and Sajet. Sajet's not too important, but it is important for the trap card that you actually have to play, which is Void Feast, which we'll get to. Sitesmas is the attack, and during the end of the battle phase, you get to non-target banish, helps you get around a card like Dragoon. And then also a card like a Tondale to be able to attack twice, like BLS's attack twice effect. A lot of times a Tondale is how you can really get a game over with pretty quickly, and we still need a rarity bump on that one in the Sitesmas. So if Konami's listening, they're not listening. Patrulia, Harmodic, and Antra. Antra is very similar to Compulse, being able to bounce any card that's face up on the field. Patrulia is very similar to MST, being able to pop a spell and trap, and Harmodic pops a monster. You can manipulate them along with the Decatron that's in the deck to be able to create some Synchro 8 plays, whether you send the Harmodic and have Patrulia in your hand, or you send Patrulia when you have Harmodic in your hand. And there's various other combos. Most of the time that's how you go for your Synchro 6, in case you were ever wondering. All of these come up in specific scenarios. There is one that's very similar to a Night Beam called Pyramice, but he's 0/0. He's just not really that necessary unless you I just don't think he's necessary, and I don't want to brick on the names. You don't want to play too many Infernoid names because they're very similar to Shadal's. With slightly better effects, you have to kind of depend on them to be able to do what they need to on the times that you need them. Still the same with this, just because Fluandry is another deck that I love and I'm known for a little bit. I'm not seeing as many wind barrier statues, and people are cutting them, so I put lava golems back in. I've been manipulating them back and forth. And then also these can be slots for some of the new stuff, whether you want to play Charge of the Light Brigades and Raiden to be able to quicker mill through your deck. If you want to play Fairy Tale Snow, there's a very obvious Lightsworn variants that you can have with this deck. Obviously, since Snow is back, that's probably a most definite option, and fair play to it. I'm not playing Snow in this build just because I don't think it's necessary. However, there are go first builds. There are definite builds that you can have with Invoked, and there's definitely stuff that you can do with Charge of Light Brigade, the Light Sworns, and Fairy Tale Snow, and so on and so forth, and hopefully Grass comes back one day. But for these, being able to just tribute away your opponent's board and then possibly have a card like Alpha to bounce it back, or just have Alpha in general. Alpha is a very strong pressure card. It actually beats Baron LaFleur. It beats it consistently, because a lot of people are putting it in defense, and you're just like special battle attack, and then they completely lose all the ability to be able to deal with anything if you're doing that, just because it's so free, or it makes them waste the Shisha after playing sword. So it's just a very, very powerful card. If you draw these two together, you're probably gonna win that game. That's all for the monsters. Significant amount of monsters. I forget the exact number. I believe that's 18, but don't quote me if I'm wrong. I don't ever keep the count that close. With the spell cards, Lair of Darkness is the wheels to everything still, even though we only have one monster gate. Lair of Darkness, along with the Infernoid effects, is still really, really powerful. And the two cards that I've put in to replace it, which you probably can guess if you've ever played a deck like this, I 100% believe that it's still a really big problem for people to be able to deal with Lair. It's just not as unfair to sack people with Monster Gate being at 1 because of that stupid Machina FTK deck that nobody is actually playing. They hit Monster Gate, so you know, can't say thank you enough for that one. As far as the consistency, Pot of Extravagance. I still feel that going second, if you're playing the go first version, you're playing Prosperity and you're trying to dig for the trap, or dig for a Decatron to block the trap. You know, you're trying to get to something. But in the go second version, you just want a Pot of Greed, and you want as many power cards in your hand as possible, and that's why you play Extravagance. So if you're going first, I recommend Prosperity, Extravagance if you're going second, and because you can OTK if you have a card like I have in my extra deck. Moving on, you got Triple Void Imagination, the best fusion spell in the game. Void Vanishment, the best searcher for the best fusion spell in the game, and the trap card, which is right here. Now the trap card also got a rarity bump. The trap card is basically send one void spell or trap from your hand or face up on the field to the grave, which is most of the time going to be this, pitching a card, and then this will be on the field, so you just pitch this on their turn. Or if you just have a leftover one of the Void Imaginations, the trap card is just really, really powerful and can really take over the game, and you can build a deck around this, and it is a very, very strong possibility with cards like Lilith and the cards like Prosperity, and just the necessity of losing some power go second plays. I definitely feel like it's almost a necessary build. And again, if you're putting in Prosperity and you want to play going first, you just put in multiples of those. But these are the wheels to everything as far as spells and traps are concerned. And this card, as I said before, is the best fusion spell in the game by bar none. I promise you it is. Although branded fusion is going to be really nuts, and I do feel there's a branded version of Infernoids you can play. But for right now, this is the best fusion spell. It's just not fair in any capacity. Being able to dump massive amounts of Infernoids that are going to be able to add pluses later on, or just wipe your opponent out later on, it's just really, really key. Forbidden Droplet, just because you just have to have something to answer your opponent's boards. And I'm not trying to hand trap too much with this deck. One, because of stuff like the cards that I have. I almost let it slip. But then you also have cards like Monster Gate and et cetera, et cetera. You can't necessarily afford the hand traps unless you're playing Gamma, because you can just mill right past them unless you hit the driver, or if you're playing a card like Imperm. But I just would rather have Droplet just to be able to answer things. And I'm going second most of the time anyway. And unless I get shifted, I'm not really worried about it too much, because I can just activate a power card and then chain Droplet to it. Harpy's Feather Duster for a 1-of. Terraforming for a 1-of to be able to search the 3 Lair and the 1 Mystic Mind that I'm playing. I still feel this is really, really pertinent to play. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with playing mine in that capacity. It's just sometimes your hands get empty really fast, your opponent commits a lot, or they have to react a lot to the cards that you've already thrown at them with Extravagance drawing cards. You've thrown the fusion spells, you have the droplets, your hand's almost empty. All right, cool, nothing left, I'm behind on cards. Mystic Mind. Now I can either wipe your complete board out when I summon a Nutsu or Diviati in some capacity, I'm just saying, or you can just completely just stall your opponent out if they have less cards than you. And I mean, it's not the best way to win, but it's still really, really a popular way to win, and it's about winning, isn't it? The 1 Monster Gate, again, unfortunately they limited it to 1. I don't know why in the world they did that, but I understand it with the FTK that was out there, but it just had nothing to do with Infernoids, I don't believe. And maybe it did. Maybe they didn't want 3 Monster Gate and an ability to have Fairy Tale Snow in your deck. That would have been kind of insane. But it's still a powerful card, and if you're playing Lair, you just still have to play this. But if you're playing the Go First version, you just take this card out. 1 for 1. Just it's the replacement for Monster Gate, and Reasoning is the replacement for Monster Gate. For before, I just wasn't playing these. These are just 3 Monster Gates because I just always wanted to keep going and going and going, and I was still playing some of the other options you have already seen. But for these, I just feel like these are the same thing. I'm still gonna stop on a Decatron. I just don't get to mill a bunch of cards as often. With Reasoning, it's the same thing. I'm still getting to mill the cards, but I'm always going to hit the card that they know. So really, I'm just going for the mill factor anyway. I might not get the body on board because they're gonna call 1 most of the time, but this still is an adequate replacement. So at that point, I feel like you either go with this or you play a card like Enemy Controller in combination with a card like Lair. But I just don't like playing cards that don't do anything independently, and that's why I picked these for right now as far as going second. And if you get stuck going first, these aren't horrible cards to draw because it'll at least equal and negate in some capacity. That's all for the main deck. It's 40 cards. Moving into the side, and I'll touch on the extra real quick. But my side is pretty much streamlined, but I do want to play a couple other cards. Wanted to try a couple other cards. Just haven't had the time to really test as much as I want to, and I've been playing a lot on Master Duel, and the builds on there are kind of insane. I guess I'll go over them one by one. Red Reboot, triple Evenly. I feel like Evenly is even better now because Sky Prison decks are going to come back because Eldritch is really, really insane right now with triple skill drain. So this card is just, you can't not play evenly matched. You can't not play evenly matched. I promise you, it's stupid not to, in my opinion. Twin Twister, you could also play Danko right there, but I just feel like evenly is nuts right now. Twin Twister, also adequate back row removal that can help you in a pinch. Triple Artifact Sanctum for stuff for going first. Triple Artifact Sanctum. Double Void Feast to go with the 1 in the deck. So when you go first, you'll have 3 in the deck. This is again how you get the ability to grab out some board presence when you go first by putting the Sajet and double Decatron on the field and just locking your opponent out with a spell or trap negate and a monster negate occasionally, or whatever you need, whatever the matchup is. And then the double trap trick to be able to grab either one of those cards. And I do feel like I want to play Torrential Tribute. It kind of goes off and on. It's just kind of my opinion that it's a better suited to not play Torrential in this capacity right now, but it always depends on how the format ebbs and flows. If it flows one way, then I just swap some things out and I put into Torrential. You know, I'll cut down on Sanctum or I'll cut Sanctum altogether. It just depends on what the other decks are. Right now, Sanctum is a better card just because you can't Torrential and hurt a deck like Phantom Knight enough. Even with Infernoids and stuff on the board, it's just not possible. And then Artifact Scythe, obviously, because you're playing Sanctums and you're playing 5 Sanctums, really, you're going to have it. You know, hopefully you just don't draw it or you Twin Twister yourself or something. But other than that, you're just going to be screwed if you draw it pretty much in this deck. But, you know, it is what it is. Extra deck, Tiaras. I'm still playing the ultis. The secrets look really good though. Mills, most of you're not going to resolve the second 2 effects, but Mills 3 from the extra, 3 from the top of the deck. Just progresses your game state, but it's rough against a deck like a Phantom Knight. You know, you don't want to give them too much, but most of the time you got complete control of the game if the fusion spell landed, so that's pretty much that. 3 Intis. These are cards that you send from your extra deck for Tiara to be able to pop stuff and just handle your opponent's board state. Getting into 3 of some more in the deck. Equimax for the Equimax OTK. If you've never seen the OTK, you would just summon a bunch of monsters. You dump a bunch of monsters in the grave, then you have Equimax, and you point some cards at Equimax. You attack over something. Hopefully they've done something dumb and put something right here. You can just put Equimax in one of the zones. But for the most part, if you're gonna have an Infernoid under them, sometimes you're giving them Lava Golem, sometimes you have an Infernoid here, you know. Sometimes you have an Infernoid here and an Infernoid here. That's game, pretty much. you know, and a lot of times your hands just play out that way. If they have a combo deck, I can pretty much do that all the time as long as I have a way to mill a bunch of cards. And you mill successfully, the game is pretty much over, and it's way more consistent than you think. And then obviously it's an OTK. Yes, you can attack, but if you attack and then you tribute after you've attacked and it wasn't enough with the Infernoid effects, you tribute off with one of them that has a quick effect, and then you can just attack for game from there. So pretty much that's how that goes usually. It doesn't happen that often, but it usually maybe once a tournament, any kind of 5-round tournament, it's going to happen at least once on average. And then for the remainder of the extra deck, it's just utility that you have to play. Gravity Control is necessary. Hita is necessary, and Alpha Fireback is necessary because you can jump into Equimax with these two. And Gravity Controller helps you to clear the level lock that Infernoids give you. You can't summon 9 stars. The 9 is the caps. You can summon 8, like a Tonedale and something else, but after that, you're stuck. And then for the last 3 cards, Boral Sword for the knockout punch. It can be Access Code Talker, which would be an easier threat after a card like Equimax, or if you just need to wipe out a bunch of stuff, but sometimes Boral Sword is just enough. I want to play Underworld Goddess potentially, you know, to be able to handle some stuff on the board occasionally. But for the synchros and wrapping up, Chaos Ruler is very, very powerful, and being able to mill cards is a good thing, and then Omega to be able to rip a card in specific scenarios. And obviously I'm not playing Cyframe Gear Gamma, but if I was, that's more of that. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Happy Noid Year to you. I'm out. Pegasus out. Arrivederci.